So that was this one. Let's go back. Let's see, what were we looking at? This was in oh, have a good night. Have a good night, Warm Winter. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. So that was in TPR, a little book review. Let's see, anything else good here? No. Okay, so let's just head back to the front page of Phil Papers. Synthes in Southern Journal of Philosophy. Let's see. See what the Southern Journal of Philosophy has to say. Editors, no, nothing. Oh, they have nothing short. Okay. Synthes. If anyone has a request, of course, you can let me know. If you have like an area of philosophy or topic you're interested in. Skepticism and epistemic angst. Ooh, epistemic angst. Let's get all angsty up in this place. Epistemic norms, closure, and the no belief hinge epistemology. The heck is that? This looks like it's only 11 pages. See if it's available. Quasi-realism and normative certitude. This is only 8 pages. You win if you're only 8 pages. Come on, Roulette, land on here. Why are you no here, file? Oh, it's open access. Nice. So let's just see if that's actually there. Aha. Let's see if it's actually 8 pages then. Okay, it's 9 pages, but it's dense 9 pages. Alright, let's look real quick at the other one. Epistemic norms, and this one also not here. Okay, but it's on free eprints. Maybe the whole thing is if I go away, maybe the whole issue was open accessed. That's unusual, but okay. Nope, not there. Oh, come on. This one. Clicking on the wrong thing. So cool. Let's see. Oh, so this is 12 pages, and it's just as dense. Okay, so that means the 8 page wins out because, 8 is less than 12. I was told that. So let's see what we got. Save file. Not what I wanted to do. Cool. So here we go. Sorry for the little bit of bookkeeping there, but like I gotta grab the links and stuff for the stream. Cool. So, quasi-realism and normative certitude. Hopefully this won't be like completely terrible. Pardon me while I do a bump for YouTube, and then we'll jump right into it. Alright. Yes, this is Philosophy Roulette 247, and where I read and review philosophy papers online, live on Twitch, and then for later for YouTube. So I got this paper, Quasi-realism and Normative Certitude, by people obviously not with very boring American names, so I apologize for saying everyone's name incorrectly. But hey, my fault. I'm sorry. Cool. And we don't read abstracts. Hey, that means we gain a page. Introduction: Non-cognitivism, normative certitude, importance, and quasi-realism. An indisputable feature of normative judgments is that they vary in degrees of certitude, just like non-normative judgments do. So, just as one can be more or less certain that there is extraterrestrial life or that Goldbach's conjecture is correct, one can be more or less certain that euthanasia is permissible or that utilitarianism is true. Recent debate has revealed that this observation is very difficult to accommodate for non-cognitivist theories of normative judgment. If normative judgments are beliefs, it is no more problematic to account for degrees of normative certitude than to account for degrees of non-normative certitude. But if normative judgments are non-cognitive, desire-like states, how would we make sense of degrees of normative certitude? For example, was it to be certain that female circumcision is morally wrong, and less than certain that male circumcision is wrong? There is also another dimension of normative judgment, which is often called importance. For example, it is a common thought that it is more important to save lives than to keep promises. This feature is not difficult for cognitivism to accommodate. To judge that saving lives is more important than to keep promises is simply to believe that saving lives is more important than keeping promises. According to traditional versions of non-cognitivism, however, non-cognitive or desire-like attitudes have no normative content. It is therefore unclear whether traditional versions of non-cognitivism can accommodate normative importance. And please, folks, ask me questions. Like, I know these are kind of big words, non-cognitivism, but when they say desire-like, when you say something is like non-cognitive, that means it's like it's not like you have some propositional thing like I think it is good. It means you're just like, yeah, it's good. Like, yeah, that's what it is. It's like you just have some sort of desire for it, and so that's not cognitive in your head in some sense. CJ Raid, oh my God, CJ, what's up? How you doing? Yeah, sorry, I have like a terrible system at the moment. But yeah, thank you for the raid. What is going? Yeah, I have a janky setup. Were you doing your 700 persons follower schedule, I think, or something even bigger than that? You were doing League, like, were you playing League tonight? Do you even play League? Like, how'd that go? Yeah, I was lurking a little bit. Play the League. That's awesome. Congratulations. So, I mean, good job. 6.5 years and you were terrible. Okay, good. Kill those bastards. Awesome. Glad it went like well enough then, at least. That's so cool. Yeah. So you get like a lot of like cheers and stuff. Like, yay. That's non-cognitivism. Like, woo. Awesome. Alright, cool. Well, congratulations on the 700 followers. I hope everything, like, the stream went well. So, that's really cool. Come from so long ago. Not reading any more you don't have any more fanfic you can read on stream, can you? One of your days I'm gonna I got a bunch of your channel points. One day I'm just gonna make you read half of Twilight all at once. Aristotle, yeah, CJ is one of my Aristotle. Like, you should go hang out with CJ from NJ. CJ is a Minesweeper streamer, actually, and there's a lot of fun over there. You might check it out. Yeah, and CJ, you could check out Aristotle if you want to go do more philosophy. Not with me, though. He's a good guy. Aristotle is, so. Woo, check out. There you go. That's CJ. There we go. So. That's awesome. Valbo, how you doing? Yeah, so cool. Let's see what's going on here. Alright, where was I? Okay, whatever's. Down here. Note that certitude and importance are two separate dimensions of normative judgment that can vary independently. For example, one can be highly certain that keeping promises is not of great importance, that breaking promises is a minor wrong, and one can be moderately certain that euthanasia is of great importance, for example, that is seriously wrong. This means that certitude and importance cannot both be accommodated in terms of strength or intensity of non-cognitive or desire-like attitude. It appears then that desire-like attitudes do not have enough structure to accommodate both certitude and importance in the right way. I mean, is that fair? I mean, why are we forcing a very fine-grained approach onto these things? Just because some philosophers want a very fine-grained approach to stuff doesn't mean that we should have a fine-grained approach to stuff. Yeah, I think that's right, ourselves. They're trying to find a way to make non-cognitive judgments admit of degrees of certitude and have lexicality. Yeah, see, like, they're trying to, like, make things fine-grained. Why do we need things to be fine-grained? Like, is this actually the right thing to be doing? And the fact that you can separate out two different things in, theory, does that actually mean that we have to have a non-cognitivist version of that? I'm not sure. But yeah. We initially said that it is an indisputable feature of normative judgments that they vary in certitude, but perhaps an unflinching defender of non-cognitivism could argue that the view that normative judgments can vary in certitude in the first place stems from a misconception. Yeah, like, this is a thing. Maybe you just want to resist the whole idea that, like, everything is so darn complicated. Be like, no. You feel a certain way, it's not cognitive, and the fact that, like, people want to be like, well, let's, like, slice and dice it up, maybe that's just not the right thing to be doing about this stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that you could say that. Like, why does everything need to have, like, a number attached to it? Whatever the prospects of such an endeavor, it is not an option for quasi-realists, who are the contemporary heirs of traditional non-cognitivism. Quasi-realists aspire to accommodate apparent realist and cognitivist seeming features of normative judgment without committing to a realist ontology and without abandoning the idea that normative judgments express non-cognitive attitudes. Normative judgments varying degrees of certitude is clearly among the realist and cognitivist seeming features that a successful quasi-realist theory must accommodate. In previous work, two of us have argued that extant non-cognitive accounts of normative certitude, including ecumenical expressivist accounts, fail. Michael Riggs has recently argued that quasi-realists can do better. Section 2, we consider Riggs' refined version of the view that degrees of certitude reduce to betting dispositions. As Riggs is aware, this kind of approach faces many general problems that strike equally against its cognitivist and non-cognitivist versions. Section 3 considers and rejects Riggs' claim that quasi-realists can simply mimic whichever account of certitude cognitivists take to be most plausible. We conclude that quasi-realism fails to provide a non-cognitivist or expressivist account of normative certitude. Okay, so we're going to try to... So it looks like what they're doing in this paper is, as Aristotle was very on the ball points out, they're trying to find some way to make non-cognitive judgments, which are sort of like the emotional response, have degrees of certitude. And so how do you make an emotional response have a degree of certitude? I don't know. But they're saying you can't do it. So that's kind of what's happening here. Betting accounts. Aristotle, if you could explain in any degree what quasi-realism is, I'd appreciate it. I know it's Simon Blackboard's big deal and it's inspired by Hume, but understanding it's like trying to strangle a hagfish. I don't have any better way of explaining this either. I want to see what Riggs' claim is here. That's what I was going to do. I was actually like punting to see how they, what this, the Riggs account was going to be. So... You're 100% right. I was punting on that question, but I was punting because I was hoping that the authors were going to do it. Well in line with the quasi-realist spirit. this is one of the... Let me tell you something. As soon as you see that everyone has their own line, you can see that there is no actual like content there because everyone's doing their own ad hoc thing. If they can't get their act together, it's usually one of these sort of covering theories. If it's a covering theory, that's fine. They should just come out and say that like we're all just sort of not something else, and you can like put a label on us. But I don't want to like say that's these folks. I don't know, but usually there is no good definition because there is no one thing they're doing. A lot of times they're just trying to avoid some other option. So we'll find out. Well, in line with the quasi-realist spirit, you can see immediately what's happening here. Spirit. We're not talking exactly what it is. We're just talking about a spirit. Rigg starts by looking at what realists say or should say about certitude, and then argues that quasi-realists can say exactly the same thing. So basically, this is a anti-realist version of realism. So that's kind of it without going full like anti-realism. As he notes, there is no perfect consensus about what credences are. Pending an account of what credences are, there is no way of knowing whether such an account is available to the quasi-realist. We shall argue, however, that regardless of which theory of degrees of certitude is, in the end, most plausible, the onus is on quasi-realists to demonstrate that normative certitude is no more problematic than non-normative certitude, and here they face severe trouble. Yeah, but Aristotle, you know you want to eat other people's lunch sometimes. Like, you'd be like, oh, look over there at the utilitarians. Don't they have those like really good things that we want sometimes? And but we're not utilitarian, but we're gonna like sort of like semi-utilitarian things. So even with your virtue ethics, you want to be like, well, but I can do this like cute little semi-utilitarian thing. Like, we all do this. This is the whole reason people have disagreements is because like we have good stuff over here, they have good stuff over there. It's not the same good stuff. Grass is greener. The wine that is best is wine that's not yours. And so you want to sort of eat other people's lunch sometimes. You want to have like a free lunch. And that's just people. Nothing special about this. So they want to have the realist's cake and without any of the problems of realism. That's all it is. Okay, so they face severe trouble. So, what is it that cognitivists say or should say about certitude according to Rigg? His answer is that a relatively orthodox conception understands certitude very roughly in terms of counterfactual betting behavior. A little less roughly, there are the following three main possibilities. 1. An agent's betting dispositions are indicative of her certitude. 2. An agent's certitude supervenes on her betting dispositions. And 3. An agent's certitude reduces to her betting dispositions. Okay, and for people who aren't used to this sort of talk, if like I say, how much do you like this? You could say, well, how much money would you bet for this sort of thing to happen again? And so it's like, it's counterfactual, doesn't actually exist. What would you do in the case of, and how much money would you put on this sort of behavior? And that's what a betting position is. You say, what would you do in these situations, and how much money is it worth to you? And so the question is, how much money you'd put on it, is that indicating something about you? Is your certitude actually how much telling you something about how much you would bet, so it's the other way around, or did they reduce to the same thing? So that's kind of to like one underlying property. And those are the three options here. Rigg argues initially that quasi-realism is compatible with a variety of more precise ways of understanding certitude in terms of betting dispositions, but in the course of a discussion he ends up endorsing 3, so they all reduce down. Oh, and let me just note for those people who don't know, philosophers like betting dispositions and betting because it gives a precise number to things. You can reduce it to some sort of, hey, I'd put $3 on it, you'd put $4 on it, therefore the person who put $4 on it likes it more. And you can say, well, how much more? Well, 3 to 4, very simply. And those would be the odds you'd have to give. You'd have to give 4 to 3 odds to make someone who has worse appreciation for something want to take the bet, to make that a fair bet. So you can see how that actually then talks about how people interact with each other. Ridge thus accepts the betting interpretation not merely as an epistemic view, according to which an agent's betting disposition are evidence of her certitude, a view that is widely held at least for certain kinds of credences, but also as a metaphysical view that reduces credences to counterfactual betting behavior, a view that has very few adherents in these post-operationist times. Yeah, why would you reduce everything down to betting behavior? That's very strange. At least nowadays it is, I guess, as the authors note. The attempt to understand certitude in terms of betting dispositions traditionally involves monetary bets, since money is a unit that is available, quantifiable, easily dividable, and desired by almost everyone. Depending on whether one accepts 1, 2, or 3, or 2 or 3, or merely 1 above, the basic thought is that an agent is more confident that P than not P if she is disposed to take the bet 10 euros if P is true and 0 if not P is true, over the bet 0 euro if P is true and 10 if P is not true, or merely that her disposition is to take the former bet over the latter is evidence that she is more confident that P than not P. Yeah, so basically if you're willing to bet on something happening versus not bet on it not happening, then you think the one that you're willing to take the bet means you believe it more likely. Each extant version of 1, 2, and 3 faces a number of well-known problems, helpfully explained by Erikson and Hayek. Here we mention only a few of them, focusing on their ramification for Ridge's account about normative certitude. First, the narrow focus on monetary bets is problematic since some people care very little or not at all about money, and since money has diminishing marginal utility for most people. Clearly, such variations in attitude toward money should not affect degrees of certitude, no matter whether we are talking about descriptive or normative certitude. Yeah, of course, the fact that Ridge is looking at bets, it's like, well, there's all sorts of weird things with bets, and I guess that's what they're going through here. It's like, how much can you actually know about betting $3 on something? What does that even tell you? And that's a problem for all these betting theories. Ridge is aware of this problem. In response to it, he proposes a broader account of betting understood roughly in terms of what payoffs would induce the agent to risk a given cost on the truth of the proposition, where cost and payoff are understood in terms of things the agent cares about. Exactly, Aristotle. Psychology of risk and aversion. You have to get more sophisticated, but philosophers love putting numbers on things, so this is just how they do it. But in some sense, that's kind of what Ridge is saying. It's like, look, the numbers are just sort of metaphors here. So to see what Ridge's account amounts to when it is applied to normative certitude, let us follow him in considering the proposition that lying is wrong. How confident are you that this proposition is true? According to Ridge, this will be fixed by how much of what you care about you are disposed to risk on the truth of that proposition. We determine this by going to the nearest possible world in which you believe the truth of the proposition determines how much utility you will derive from acting in one way or another, and then you see what you choose in the world. Okay, so basically you imagine the options. That's all that says. What you care about and what determines how confident you are that lying is wrong might be to act rightly. A simplistic approach would be to assume that in the nearest possible world, the agent cares about doing the right thing, say, and believes that the truth of the proposition in question bears on whether, in performing a given action, he would thereby satisfy his preference to behave rightly. As Ridge points out, the preference or desire in question must be a desire de dicto to do the right thing. While Ridge seems initially to propose this view only for illustrative purposes, it is the view he eventually appears to endorse. He concedes that it is not obvious what a desire de dicto to do the right thing amounts to on an expressivist analysis. De dicto is what's said, so it's like you have to be like, what does it mean to do the right thing in terms of what is you think it is said to do the right thing? So in some sense, there is a weird question here of what do you think the right thing is, and you're only talking about what you think the right thing is. You're not actually what is the right thing, but what you think the right thing is, because you still have to you're sort of projecting this. Making sense of this requires that expressivists explain how normative contents can figure as the contents of other attitudes, which is the one aspect of the perennial Frege-Geach problem. Ridge therefore defends the conditional thesis that if expressivists can solve the Frege-Geach problem, they can also solve the problem of accounting for degrees of normative certitude. Yes, if you can solve the problem of world hunger, then you can solve other stuff. But this is I can't explain the Frege Geeks problem now. It's about embedding sentences in other sentences. But, yeah. So this is the problem. If you have to think about what is the right thing, but your answer is, of course, your emotional response, how do you connect up what you're thinking about to what the emotional response is? Because you have to sort of embed the emotional response. You have to understand what an embedded emotional response, the contents of other attitudes are. And that gets extremely complicated. And this is basically hand waving. If you say you can solve the Frege Geeks problem, then you're a better philosopher than everybody else anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Okay. But this is why they mention it, because this is basically saying, look, this ain't happening. Ain't happening, fam. Setting aside the prospects of solving the Frege Geeks problem, Cryonic says, murder is immoral. He killed someone means he did something moral, therefore cognitivism. Yes, but you have to understand the appeal of the non-cognitivism. The appeal of the non-cognitivism is sort of like the emotional reaction to murder is immoral. And, like, you kind of want that. And that's why people are these non-cognitivists, is because you want that. You don't want just the murder is immoral, like that statement. That seems sort of, too analytic. Aristotle says, if murder is wrong, you shouldn't murder. Cognitive statement. Murder is wrong. Emotive. That's like, boo, murder. That's bad. How do we get the modus ponens conclusion from the murder is wrong from those premises? That's the issue here. You can't, and this is what the Frege Geeks problem is. How do you get the content, which would be the de re, the substance of the stuff, from the cognitive murder is wrong and you shouldn't murder? And that's the jump here in the Frege Geeks problem. How do you get from de dicto to de re? And the de re being the question of Frege Geeks. Like, how do you solve that? Or at least in part. I keep forgetting exactly how everyone calls Frege Geeks, what they think of it now, but yeah. So, but yeah, thank you both Cryonics and Aristotle for the comments there. It's like, yeah, this is one of these things that people have been arguing about for 150 years at this point. Setting aside the prospects of solving the Frege Geeks problem, it is not clear that Ridge's move to a broader account of betting avoids the problems that arise for the narrow focus on monetary bets. It is true of all the things we care about that some people care very little or not at all about them, and it is true of many things we care about that they have diminishing marginal utility for us. What is more, using monetary bets has the aforementioned attraction that money is easily subdividable and quantifiable. But this is not true of de dicto desires to do what is right, and it seems in general not true of things agents care about. That's fair. I mean, just because you start talking about, like, murder being immoral, and, like, that, then all of a sudden, how do you start slicing up what that means in terms of, like, money? What does that mean, that murder is immoral, and sort of, like, how many dollars do you put on that statement? It doesn't make sense. Another standard problem with approaches that focus narrowly on monetary bets is that some beliefs are not amenable to them. Consider someone who is confident that there is no monetary institution. Given 2 and 3, such a person is disposed to take the bet €10 if there is no monetary institution, 0 if there is, over a bet 0 if there is not, and $10 if there is a monetary institution. Given 1, the person's confidence that there is no monetary institution is revealed by her disposition to take the former bet over the latter. But such a disposition is absurd, since some of the possible payoffs are not well defined. If there is no monetary institution, you can't get any monetary payoff at all. The belief that there is no monetary institution may be unsupported by evidence, but it is not absurd, and it should be possibly defined by degrees of certitude for this belief. Yeah, I mean, this is sort of like a technical problem. You could probably find some way around this. But, like, it's like someone doesn't believe Bitcoin is money, and then you ask them to gamble the Bitcoin, and they're like, okay, I'll take the gamble. It's like, well, does that really make sense? Not so much, but, they might still do it for, like, other reasons. Ridge's view faces a version of this problem which she does not address. Consider a cynic who is confident that there is nothing she cares about. Yeah. On Ridge's broader betting account, the cynic would be disposed to take a bet that gives her a lot of what she cares about if there's nothing that she cares about, a bet that gives her a lot of what she cares about if there's something that she cares about. But again, that is absurd. By contrast, the cynic's belief that there is nothing she cares about may be unfortunate, but is not absurd and should have a definable degree of certitude. A third general problem for the attempt to understand degrees of certitude in terms of betting dispositions is that some people are keen to gamble where others are averse to it. But willingness or unwillingness to gamble should clearly not affect one's certitude about various matters. This is clearly a challenge for the view that degrees of certitude supervenes or reduces to betting dispositions, and it suggests that betting dispositions need not be reliable indicators of people's degree of certitude. Ridge's view evades this problem because he suggested to go hypothetical. More particularly, he might suggest that in order to determine an agent's certitude, we look to the nearest possible world in which the agent has no particular pro or con attitude vis-a-vis gambling, but instead has the disposition of an instrumentally rationalized maximizer of expected utility. Yeah, see, this is one of the things. If someone's like a gamble nut, you can't use this on them. But that's fair. Yeah, it's a mess. Yeah. So, these are sort of technical problems. I don't see them as critical, but they're general problems that if you're going to apply the stuff that you should worry about. So I agree with the authors here, but it's not, it's a difficult move to make because of how messy this stuff is. But that doesn't make it a bad move. It really doesn't. Just because it's messy doesn't make it bad. A lot of stuff is messy. It is not clear that such a move is successful, however, for it is in general not clear what bearing non-actual attitudes have on actual attitudes. Yeah, so if you start saying, well, how would someone act if they weren't a gambling addict? I mean, that's kind of hard. You don't know. Why think that the betting behavior I would have if I was a very different attitude, if I had very different attitudes, says anything about my actual beliefs. Indeed, Riggs notes that an often neglected aspect of non-cognitivist problem with normative certitude is that an acceptable account must accommodate the role that certitude and importance play in rational motivation. But it is not clear how an agent's actual rational motivation to act are explained by attitudes she does not actually have but merely could have. At this point, Riggs might respond that the problems we have highlighted are indeed problems for the view that certitude reduces to or supervenes on betting dispositions, and for his more specific proposal that normative certitude is to be understood in terms of a desire de dicto to act rightly. Importantly, however, these problems do not demonstrate there is no plausible account of normative certitude available to quasi-realists. Riggs could say that if the problems turn out to be insurmountable, the quasi-realist can simply mimic the cognitivist's account, whatever it is. Recall Riggs's claim that if there is a plausible account of certitude, including normative certitude available to cognitivists, quasi-realists can take on the same account. However, we shall argue in the next section that this is not as easy as it may sound. Yeah, see, there's the thing. Riggs is using this as a method to mimic the cognitivist account. He's going to say, they're saying, look, he's going to duck out and say, hey, look, I gave something that was kind of plausible, and this was merely a suggestion to get us going. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we can still find other ways because the method wasn't the important part. It was getting the right answers. And so we can find other ways to get the right answers. So let's see. But now the authors have to argue that it can't be done in the general case at all. So let's see how they pull this one off. And we're on page 6 of 9, so we're going to get through this kind of quick. To motivate the claim that quasi-realists can simply mimic whatever account of certitude. And please keep asking questions, making comments. I appreciate it. To motivate the claim that quasi-realists can simply mimic whatever account of certitude cognitivists take to be most plausible, Riggs makes use of a familiar quasi-realist gambit. He points out first that quasi-realists take normative judgments to be truth-apt. Ugh, truth-apt. I hate truth-apt. Why do things have to be truth-apt? Okay, normative judgments to be truth-apt. Since they accept deflation about truth, quasi-realists can easily maintain that some normative judgments are true. Being truth-apt is being something that can be true or false. So normative judgment saying, look, this is right, that is truth apt means it can be true or false. And they're inflationist about truth. That means there's not a whole lot to truth. They can easily maintain that some normative judgments are true. That's just how they are. There's nothing to it. Things are just true or false. Second, Ridge contends that with truth, we have holding true, which is to say, normative belief. Furthermore, Ridge takes belief to refer to a multiply realizable kind. Some beliefs are purely representational states, where other beliefs are non-representational. 12. We don't have much of an idea what non-representational beliefs are, but it seems clear that Ridge thinks that normative beliefs belong in this category. Okay, so we just have a whole bunch of things that would be like you can say are true or false, basically, at this point. It is far from obvious, however, that quasi-realists can unproblematically help themselves to any account that cognitivists may accept simply by plugging in the notion of non-representational beliefs. Consider interpretation a la David Lewis, which is the general account of certitude that Ridge seems most sympathetic to. On this view, there are only two mental states that we can correctly ascribe to an agent in order to interpret her behavior: beliefs and desires. We can correctly ascribe beliefs and desires to an agent if she satisfies the axioms or rationality postulates that are constitutive of being a believer and a desirer. Furthermore, if she satisfies these axioms, her credences can be represented by a probability function and her desires by a utility function. Crucially, on the most plausible axiomatization, there are two distinct states, beliefs and desires, and the rationality postulates for belief are not the same as the rationality postulates for desire. For example, desires do not satisfy all of the axioms of the probability calculus. This prompts the following question: which rationality axioms are non-representational normative beliefs supposed to satisfy? On Ridge's ecumenical expressivist account, normative judgments are partly constituted by desire-like states of mind, and yet they are beliefs where belief is understood broadly as whatever causally regulates our actual use of belief. Ridge seems to face a dilemma here. On the first form, if non-representational normative beliefs satisfy the rationality axioms for desire, they should be seen as a subclass of desires, and Ridge's theory will consequently be as badly equipped to accommodate normative certitude as previous non-cognitive theories. Okay, so if you've got, basically, this is a whole mouthful here. But if you've got these non-cognitivist beliefs, so you've just basically kind of got like emotion-like beliefs. Basically, your beliefs are kind of, you've got these emotion-like beliefs. That's what these things are. The non-representational normal beliefs. So you have sort of these emotion-like beliefs that sort of guide you places to like do things. And that's what this, where was that statement? Well, these things govern how other beliefs are. So you've got emotion-like beliefs that actually sort of like maybe herd or shift how other beliefs are, your actual use of belief. So it regulates how you feel like you believe things. The problem is, how do you actually accommodate certitude at that point? Because if they're regulating other stuff, then what is the certitude there? You have no certitude. You just have some sort of regulatory feeling about beliefs. Okay. On the second horn, non-representational normative beliefs satisfy the rationality axioms for belief and thus fall in the same class as representational beliefs. Okay, so then they're non-representational are actually some kind of representational. Then it is unclear how non-representational beliefs supposedly differ from representational beliefs. Indeed, if Ridge were to go for an axiomatization that defines graded beliefs directly in terms of betting preferences, to be more certain than P than Q when one prefers A to B is just to prefer A if P, B if not P, to A if Q, B if not Q, then all credences, all non-normative as well as normative, would in effect be reduced to betting dispositions, and it would again be difficult to see how one can distinguish between desire-like non-representational beliefs and representational beliefs. Quasi-realism therefore risks collapsing into realism, as is often the case when quasi-realists simply copy the realists' explanations. Also, it is not clear how Riggs can maintain that normative beliefs differ from descriptive ones in that they are motivational in themselves, as he argues elsewhere, and as several expressivists have insisted before him. Okay, so either you have these emotion-like beliefs, but then you can't really do what the cognitivists want because they are too fine-grained, or you have representations, and then then you're basically just a realist. So these authors say, or argue. There is thus a tension between the standard form of interpretationism and the source of hybrid states that Riggs's ecumenical expressivism presupposes. Riggs cannot just help himself to standard forms of interpretationism. He owes us an account of how interpretationism is supposed to accommodate hybrid states that are partly defined by the rationality postulates for belief and partly defined by those for desire. This illustrates that it is not the case for any view of credence available to cognitivists. Quasi-realists can simply take on the same account. Suppose now that the view of what credences are that will look most promising to cognitivists is metaphysical primitivism, that is, the view that credences are primitive properties of belief. Riggs expresses some doubt as to whether quasi-realism is compatible with primitivism, but he repeats that quasi-realists do not deny that there are normative beliefs. He therefore infers that insofar as there is trouble for quasi-realism here, it would have to be only representational beliefs. It would have to be that only representational beliefs can come in degrees, and that only representational beliefs can have the primitive property of being gradable belief state. Riggs's response to this potential objection is to ask why we should believe that. Some argument is needed, nothing here is obvious. While we are inclined to agree with at least the second half of this claim, we think that the dialectical situation still leaves a good deal of explanatory work to do for the quasi-realists. The onus is on them to A. explain what non-representational beliefs are, and in particular how they differ from desires and representational beliefs, B. make plausible that there are such beliefs, and C. give a plausible argument to the effect that non-representational beliefs vary in degrees. Needless to say, cognitivists face none of the difficulties in A through C, since they never insisted that normative and non-normative beliefs are different in kind. We conclude that cognitivists still have the upper hand over quasi-realists in the debate concerning normative certitude. Whatever certitude turns out to be exactly, it seems that non-cognitivists and expressivists will have a hard time accommodating it for normative judgments. The quasi-realist gambit does not in the end enable them to steer clear of these difficulties. Okay. I'm happy to be done with this technical philosophy. It's great stuff, but it's hard to read. Basically, look, if you're going to have an emotional standpoint when you think about beliefs, how do you then get fine-grained beliefs if everything is going to be emotional? And that's what these people are arguing against. They're on the technical side, and they're saying, look, you can't just copy what we're doing if you're doing everything in this sort of emotional, from an emotional perspective, because you don't get the fine grain that we can get with our technical analysis. And so they're saying, no, we can always go where you go. And they're saying, yeah, but you can't go where we go with the precision that we go. You might be able to follow us, but you're following us sort of in the rearview mirror. Like, you're not going exactly where we go. You're sort of only getting near where we're going. And that's kind of what's happening here. So it's a nice little paper. I don't know if you guys are going to have any questions on this paper, but let me know now, and I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, we shall move on to the next. Warm Winter, if you're here, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Yeah, I need to get some better stream alerts, but I don't use slobs. Okie dokies. Alright. What do y'all think? Yeah, I'm going to probably end stream, actually. Thank you, Aristotle. Because I am still sick, and I don't want to exhaust myself. I had a little bit of fun tonight reading with all of you. I really appreciate you guys with the raids, Aristotle and CJ. Yeah, thanks, Bangja. I appreciate people coming here. A little bit of fun. I'm going to also go rest now because I've got drugs in me. I've got like bacteria in me that's like eating my stomach out. It's bad. So I hope everyone has a good night.